Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Grabowski, and I am the Faculty Director for the Northwestern University MSA program. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar and to thank you for spending some time with us today. For any current MSA students, wanted to congratulate you on wrapping up winter quarter. I hope it went really well and that you have some time to get refreshed before spring quarter. For those who may not be familiar with our program, Northwestern University offers a Master of Arts in Sports Administration. Our goal with the program is really to help our students stand out in a very crowded sports marketplace by offering classes that will give our students skills to really differentiate themselves, as well as offering networking opportunities, because this industry is quite a bit about who you know and being in the right place at the right time. So amongst our faculty and fellow students, we really provide some robust opportunities on that front as well. I'm really excited about some new electives that we're offering, things like IT and sports and strategic social media, again, that are really going to provide those very specific and special skill sets for our students. In addition to excellent classes and faculty with fantastic sports industry experience, the program really does set itself apart with the Northwestern brand and the fact that Chicago is one of the most sports saturated cities in the world, which really provides great opportunities for our students in both internship opportunities, and volunteering, and again, some more of that networking that I referred to. So we hope you'll look us up online for further information, and we're very pleased to be a part of this webinar series. So on the note of our great faculty, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Dan Magala, one of our esteemed instructors, to introduce today's special guest.
And we're actually coming to you live from TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, and sitting here with my dear friend and colleague Amy Latimer. Say hello to Northwestern here, Amy.
Hello, everyone.
We're sitting here, you know, in her office overlooking Boston, and she's going through some renovations here, but great to be here. You know, Amy, we were just talking before when we first met 15 years ago, you know, in the early days of my career, and when you were first here. When you first started, I think you've had just about every position here, sitting
Yeah.
Here now in the president's office. Give us some insights into the early days of your career, how you got started, and you know, and did you ever dream you'd be sitting in this chair today too?
I didn't dream it, but I wished it. I think, you know what, I started probably not in a traditional sense and didn't expect that I would end up in sports. Sports, like for many of you, is a passion. I played sports, I follow sports, and I had the opportunity to move to Boston, and I was a consultant here actually for the opening of this building. And I just loved the atmosphere, the people. I came from a more of a political background, which has a lot of similarities to this business. And I was hired as the director of marketing, and I'll be perfectly honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never bought media before. I really hadn't done promotions. I was very fortunate that during the consulting work that I did, that I worked really hard, and I think they saw I was passionate and loyal, and they hired me for that director of marketing position, and then zigged and zagged in the company. And I think you know, then going to start our e-business department, because in dating myself, when I met you in 1999, 2000, thought we better figure out how to use websites and email to sell our products and work with our advertisers. And then truly, I think for me it was important that I saw that a path in sports is understanding revenue and being able to generate revenue, and went into the sales side to manage our ticket sales department and then sponsorship. So that to me is probably why I'm sitting here today.
Yeah, so I heard some of the words in there: understanding of revenue, passion, maybe a little in over your head at certain times, right? Is that
absolutely
all natural things to be able to feel through your, you know, career? I mean, those in those early days, you know, I think so many students in particular think about, I want to be a president of a team, or I want to be a GM. But you know, the chapters of your career and kind of enjoying the moment and the challenge give us some perspective going back into, those early days of, first it was marketing, then it was, this e-commerce thing, which you and I spent a lot of time in the late 90s trying to figure out the .com world. But
Sure.
how do you kind of balance that of like having longer term goals, but also focused on the present as well?
Well, I think getting in over your head on a couple of things actually forces you to learn it the hard way, and I think that was beneficial for me. The from sort of that long-term perspective, anything you can do, I think, to get the next tool in your toolbox. Like, I had a set of skills. I understood fundraising and I understood event planning. That was my background. So, okay, so I kind of had that piece, but I didn't understand media and I didn't understand how we were going to leverage, this new technology. And you really have to immerse yourself in it. And I think not only in sort of first in our own industry and then try to understand the other industries as well. So the trial by fire, I think, is the good news about that. I feel like there's less of it now, and I think there's programs like this that kind of help you kind of get through it without having to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, like the trial by fire, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes. Sure.
Yeah, but I mean that's part of the growth though too. I imagine is learning from those mistakes. The great thing is Beth mentioned in the introduction, Northwestern in Chicago has great access to teachers and exposure to people like John McDonough, and Jim Phillips, who's the AD at Northwestern. From a skill set standpoint, today in 2014. They have a lot of electives they can choose from. What are some of the specific things that you're looking for now as the president of an organization that you really want kind of the next generation of staff and executives to really possess?
You know what? I think the networking ability, which is hard to teach, but once you see the benefits of it, and I know that might not necessarily be an elective, but and exposure to those people. So the fact that you could talk to John and get something from them, and you know what? Once you make those connections, please don't make it a one and done. Stay connected with them, link in with them, make sure that you're following them, because I will tell you this is a small industry, and you will cross paths again with him or with somebody else. So I highly recommend that. I love people that like to look at things a little bit differently. So I've been here a long time, but you can't do things the same way. So people that kind of come in, a lot of people might have a different perspective, but not everybody's willing to share it and communicate it because they're nervous about sharing it. I value the people that will come in and look at something a little bit differently and say, did you guys ever think about it that way? Don't be shy about that. Don't feel like that you haven't earned the ability to express that. You have, because you have an opinion and you're trying to help the organization.
What do you think about, a lot of students, especially in the digital space, have a lot of ideas. What's the best way to communicate some of those ideas? Because you don't want to be the one that is spitting out a new idea. You want the strategy behind it. You want the critical thinking that I think a program like that teaches. But it's a difficult thing, right? To be able to raise your voice of kind of a.
Sure.
I think even in my own career, some of the wacky ideas we've even worked on together.
Yep.
In the right environment could be considered very smart, or others of that's a little too far out there.
I think I don't expect anybody to bring me 100% baked, 100% thought through, but I'd like it at 75%. I'd like somebody to think through what's the ripple effect, how does this help us, what could go wrong, and then the last 25% is for us to kind of figure out, right? So do your homework, get it to a good point, get it to a point we could walk in somebody's room and on one piece of paper or show them, this is how I think this could work, and here's what I think is the benefits of this, and this is where I think the challenges are, and then let it go from there.
So relationship building, maybe stronger than networking, of really kind of making a connection with somebody, and I think at the same time then show innovative thought. So the ability to, and I think in class projects, this is a perfect example, right? To tackle blindly something that an organization is facing, and try to almost get 7 innings of an idea. Is that
that's it.
Is that a good approach? And then kind of bridge that with the leadership. Let's go back then early in your career when you're just starting out as a director of marketing. Was there an idea that you had 7 innings of, or look back that or one that you kind of learned from that maybe had a lot of thought behind it?
I'd have to think. I feel like there's a lot of ideas, and it's not just mine. I think collaborating. I'd give a shout out to Jim Delaney, my partner in crime, early on, and we had an air hockey table in our office, and that's how we sometimes vetted some of our better ideas, and that we could talk through it that way versus sitting, around a table with a couple of people, what would work. I don't know that I have one specific idea. I feel like there was a lot of them, everything from changing the name rights to this building early on, just some crazy promotions that you do for ticket sales. When you're doing some of the events that are the Disney on Ice events or Harlem Globetrotters, those things, wrestling, you get to be a little bit more sometimes creative than with the professional team. So it's a good yin and yang. You have the brand to watch on the team side, but you get to come up with some of the really crazy ideas on the other side.
Well, and I think that's a really good lesson, because I think sometimes a lot of students want to work for the NHL team coming right out of the gate, but it's really the ability to work on some of the other events or other leagues where you learn your craft, right?
Absolutely, because at any time a team is going to have its ups and downs. So they're going to need promotions to sell tickets, and then when they're not as much selling tickets, they're helping to sell retail or food and beverage. So having a bit of that background on some of the wacky, crazy ideas helps you with, they're a bit of the springboard for the ideas. I think it's a great place to cut your teeth. Minor league sports, arenas, you get to sell some tough products long before you get to the team. So if you can do that, you can do anything. So,
and then obviously the lifeblood of an organization, tickets. Of kind of learning that from the ground up. What are some quintessential lessons of ticket sales, and what do you look for? Really, that's where a lot of people start too, right?
It is, and you know what? There's sort of those basic things that I expect everybody. I mean, certainly energy. I love team players. I love hiring athletes that have played on teams because they know how to be in the trenches with people. Certainly the loyalty and that work ethic, but those are the things you sort of expect everybody to sort of have. What I think separates the above and beyond is the customer service aspect. People that really get going beyond what the basics are for a client and going that extra mile. Like, those are things that you look at those people in the organization, you're like, they're going to go somewhere because they got it, not because somebody told them to do it, because that was instinctually how they understood it. They listen to their clients, so they're selling them into the products that's right for that client, not something that they think is right for the client. And those are the things that I think, those attributes, somebody coming in that has been through that and can talk to clients, all different types of clients too. This is everybody that wants to tell you why the GM and the coach should never have traded for that player, and you listen to a half an hour to talking about, isn't this great, you're going to get your picture with the Stanley Cup, so you have to be able to run the gamut, and I think you really have to be a little bit of that chameleon and know who you're talking to and be able to adjust.
So, and I imagine it's moments like that you're looking for the X factor, really, in a lot of people. There was one organization I remember talking to early in my career where the president of the team, a major league level team, had an assistant, and they would purposely have people wait out by the assistant's office waiting to meet the president to have an informational interview. And if somebody wrote the assistant a handwritten thank you card, that person automatically got a job.
Wow.
Of the thought that going how you treat people, and they were amazed at how many people didn't do it, as a result of that. But that at the core of how an organization does that one-to-one touch point, I think it's something that values of what you do here at the Bruins and TD Garden really, from the receptionist on up, really emulates in this organization.
Absolutely. And you know what? More and more people should be prepared for panel interviews. Multiple applicants in the room with a few people, because and that's something that a lot of people don't prepare for, and it's a little bit of, say, Survivor, but you want the people that are going to speak up but be respectful and get their point across and be willing to stand up in front of everybody else, which is very rare. It's hard to find sometimes.
So how did that come about? I haven't heard of many organizations doing the panel interviews.
For entry level positions, we do it. So we'll have 6 or 8 candidates in the room with the sales director, and it's panel of the reverse side. It's more group interviews. I shouldn't say panel. Panel's a little bit on the other side, but you see how people rise to the top in that situation.
So in the panel interviews or the group interviews, what is one thing that you've seen that you really like that would be a recommendation for it to do, and what's also a definite maybe no-no that you saw in that setting?
The no-no is not to step on the other people, right? You want to get your point across, but don't interrupt and step on the people that are also trying to talk. And I think having something, don't talk for the sake of talking. Have something valuable to say. Look people in the eye and be passionate about it. You can sense when somebody is real about what they're saying versus this is what I'm supposed to say or this is what they want to hear, because you can very quickly get through those people that are giving you what they think you want to hear.
Yeah. So that's to the point that maybe students have gotten that far. What about advice that you have for some of the students at Northwestern to even get on the radar of for a job opportunity like that, to even that's another step, right?
Sure,
but,
absolutely.
Kind
in the door.
Kind of getting your foot in the door. And I always say, at least to my class, they have the benefit of time. The ability to don't start looking for the job after you get the diploma.
I agree.
But what are some advice that you'd give to them if they're sitting at home or their office watching this right now, thinking about that first job?
I would say if you have the ability, if you can volunteer, I know there's internships, anything you can do to get in some organizations. And in a little bit, it's to see what you like about the organization. So you might think, you know what, I want to be in PR. I really love communications. And then you get in there and you say, oh, I guess I'm more really suited for this. And sometimes it's actually, to me, equally important to see what you don't like so you can focus on what you like and make those connections. I think anytime you can get in front of as many people as you can, and I will tell you, everybody says yes to informational interviews, right? I talk to kids all the time, or to students, I should say, just to get a little nugget to make that connection, but just to get something from all those different people. I think it's invaluable, but anything you can do, and even if it's not a sports team, if you can volunteer for a charity that runs events, because then you can say, I have run a 5K race, I have helped with a golf tournament. That relevant experience is really good.
Well, and that even too, I mean, you get so caught up sometimes in the title of the team or the organization, but the skill set of helping with a charity event or a minor league team or
Absolutely.
That is the same as what you do here. So,
yeah, if somebody comes to me and says for the past 3 years they've been a volunteer with Special Olympics and they put together events for the Special Olympics, that's as valuable to me as somebody that's coming and saying, well, I like events, I like attending events, I think I would like to work in events. Well, you don't really have the same perspective as somebody that's done the work.
Yeah, and those are great. Again, focus on the skill set versus maybe the logo on the business card,
Absolutely.
so to speak. So you seem to have just such a ton of fun at your job and great energy and environment here. What are some of the favorite things about pulling into work every day? And kind of give some insights into those pinch yourself kind of moments
Sure.
that that you have here.
Well, I think I love driving in every day because I can't tell you that I have a day that's the same, and probably for my personality that works really well. We will go from a Bruins game, a Celtics game, a concert, a wrestling event, another Bruins game, another Celtics game. Like, I just love it. I love the live events. I love people coming in here, the energy, and it's so different. It's a communal group, so this group that's coming in for wrestling looks different than the group that's coming in for Avicii or coming in for a different concert. So kind of getting that energy of those groups coming in. I love that it changes, and I love being part of the team. I love the wins and not the losses, but that emotional roller coaster, right? And that you're cheering for it in the beginning of every year. This is the year for your team. Like, this is it. This is, unless you're in rebuilding, this is the year, right? So just coming into that and riding that wave with the team is so much fun. And I really like winning. I found that out. I really enjoy winning. I didn't experience it in the early part of my career here at playoffs for both the Bruins and Celtics, but then the Celtics winning in 2008 and the Bruins winning in 2011, that part, it's really fun. And it's so much fun to share it with our associates. My pincher moment was, yes, when we're amazing. It was so much fun and exhausted. But I will tell you, my favorite moment of that time was the night that we handed out the rings to our associates. I had seen the players event and it was wonderful and they were celebrating, and then came here and we had all the associates on the arena floor and they opened up the box all at the same time and none of them had seen the ring. And just that moment, like, it was amazing. They were part of that team. They were part of that championship. Everybody had gotten a ring. It was probably one of my best moments here.
Do you like when you think about that? I mean, it's hard to, going back to mid-90s, you starting here as a director of marketing, thinking about getting a Stanley Cup championship ring.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one of the joys of working in this industry,
Yes.
is those almost no one will ever believe you like moments, right?
Right.
You know, that you never thought. But you know, kind of, would you, like, if you gave advice back to yourself at that time, did you even know you could dream that big? Or
Well,
like, is that,
it was a little different, probably because I was on the Garden side, and then when when I had more the Bruins responsibilities, then you do think like, yeah, like you want the team, you want it for the city, like the city, just the fans, and we really had during the 90s. There was a dip in the Bruins season tickets. There wasn't a lot for them to cheer about, and then it started to come back, and you just loved, like. I remember walking around and wanting to hug the people that were wearing Bruins jerseys at that time, because you just didn't see, and then you see the city embrace it, and the fans, and just people, they want something to cheer for, and our season ticket holders, just everybody, it just lifts. And you know what? I work in a city that's very competitive, that has a lot of championships, and you know, the 10 years everybody won. Some teams won multiple times, so the bar was really raised. So it was just fun. It was fun.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite moments with you was when you had your season ticket holders with the Stanley Cup, and it was a joy to watch Amy walk down the concourse. I don't know how many thousands of people I felt you had, but I felt the same way. You had the connection with your customers, you know, almost like a Thanksgiving dinner. You're giving them hugs and sharing in this moment, and these people are you know, waiting in line for this like eureka life moment to have their picture taken with.
And it was their families, and it was generations of season
Christmas
ticket
cards,
holders,
babies,
everything. And that's what you want to do as a team. You want to share that success, right?
Yeah.
And the Stanley Cup is such a rare trophy that, you know, the team gets it for a short amount of period, and you want to share it with as many people as possible. And to have the season ticket holders come in and get their pictures with it, it was wonderful.
How do you, like, in that moment, because you plan for success, right? And then, but you can't, you know, we learn in class, and, you know, wins are harder to come by than, you know, in championships. But when that does come, is there a blueprint for what to do, or what was that like? Were you guys around the air hockey table and or the bubble hockey trying to figure out?
Well, you know what's really nice is it's nice to be able to reach out to people that have just been through it and said, tell us what, like Chicago was a great resource for us. What did you do that you would change? What did you like? And then you adapt it to your own organization and your own city and your own ways. So there's little things that you see, but there's not a blueprint, because it's so funny. You're in the team environment, you're so superstitious, so you don't want to talk about it, and you are creeping your way down and winning these games and getting into the, and you're like, well, I don't want to talk about, but we kind of have to talk about it. We're like, no, we're not going to talk about it, but you know, you plan, you just don't, you know, you don't talk about it maybe as openly as maybe other companies doing something else, a launch of a product or something. But when it comes, you're just so happy, and you know how rare it is, that you try to take advantage of every minute of it, making sure that you're giving access to everybody and sharing it, truly.
What about the lessons that you've learned from winning seasons versus losing ones? And this is an important question, I think, for students, because I see over the years that students really want to go work for the team that's hot at the moment, and you know, and all of that. But you know, I look at people that have had success. Andy Dolich is one that comes to mind of you know, who famously started his career, I think, with the Philadelphia 76ers when they had the worst record of all time, becomes the president of the 49ers, and he talks about lessons that he learned during those rough times. Do you how do you, when you kind of look back or advice for students and really looking at an organization in their life cycle, you know, the ones that are really at the top of their game, the ones that are rebooting, what's some thoughts of what are good ones to look for, or is there any secret sauce to that?
Yeah, I think it's more about the organization than the wins and losses, and you finding out it's so important to have a good cultural fit. So to find the organization that aligns with what's important. You could have an organization that has a winning record, but doesn't operate the way that's good for you and from a good skill set standpoint. So I think that cultural fit's really important. Don't shy away from the teams that aren't doing well. It's cyclical. It's going to come around. And honestly, you kind of get to see what people are made of when things aren't going well. And I think that's when most of the creativity comes about. It's when people are, you know, just striving, they're working so hard, because we don't control the product, right? But we control their experience and the communications and everything else. So I think the important part of that is not to forget that when your team is doing well, because the last thing you want to do is change those core values of how you operate when your team's doing well. If you change them and you don't stay true to them and you don't act the same way, it's very quick. It's harder for you to recover. It's just, and people know it. People see that's, you know, they very quickly will pick up on organizations that aren't being true to their word. So the lessons are, you'll learn a lot in the organizations that are struggling, that are trying to be better. But if there's good leadership and they are trying truly to be better, it's a great place to start. When you do get to the organizations that are successful, don't forget where you came from. Yeah. Make sure that you are still treating people the same way as you did when you were struggling.
What about you mentioned the word culture. You know, if you're a grad student coming out of Northwestern and you know you're trying to find your first career and that first step, and you know, but from the outside, how do you understand culture? I mean, it's you know, in determining what organization would you be a good fit for, and kind of scouting out each other, so to speak, for that, because you really don't know until you kind of show up on day one in some cases to.
Well, I think you do your homework. I feel like the best conversations I have with potential candidates for positions have done their homework. They understand, you know, we have Delaware North, this parent company. They understand the Jacobs family, and they understand the relationships, the commitment to winning, just how it operates from a charitable standpoint, what the community does. So those are the things you can certainly do in advance. I also think it's worthwhile, because most of the times you're also going to meet with somebody from HR, and I think that's a really good barometer. So, and when you're talking to someone from human resources, to ask them about the culture, right? Because they might be a steward of it. It's really probably, you know, the executive team, but I think that's a question that you'll get a good response. And I think if you ask the person you're interviewing, I think they'll be impressed that you're asking about, tell me how this operates. Tell me not just the logistical things, but, you know, how do you handle celebrations? You know, how do you handle when a team does well, when an individual does well? You know, what do you do to make sure there's a little bit of work-life balance? Now, listen, your first job coming out, you're going to work like, you know, harder than you'll maybe ever work again. So you're not afraid of the work, but it's just trying to understand how the organization operates. Do they expect everybody in at 5:30, even on game days, dress code, everything? Because you could think it's great because of the product, but you get in there and you don't work well in that environment, and that's a disservice to you and the organization to not try to figure that out.
Yeah, and I mean, culturally, team, you know, kind of a team environment. You know, you shared a great story that you guys did an offsite where you actually ended up playing softball as a team at Fenway Park, and like, you know, all of that fuels culture and more collaboration versus everybody showing up and being in silos, so to speak, sometimes.
Right, and you need to make sure that we work in a fun environment. This is entertainment. Sometimes we have to even go off-site to get a little bit, just because we need that bonding. We need to put ourselves in a fun, vulnerable, just a different setting, just to think differently, or be able to have productive business meetings after that. So, Yeah, whenever we played softball, like nobody knew we were going. It was a fun afternoon. And then, you know what? I really felt like we came back and when we had our meetings, people were engaged and they were excited and they had sort of a new energy. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to our offsite and here's the agenda for the day and we're done.
Yeah, no, and that's and that fuels mentorships too, which are very key. Talk about some of the mentors, that you've had and some of the relationships. You've worked with some wonderfully fun and creative and very successful thinkers.
I have had the gamut of great bosses, and everything from letting me do the things that were a little bit crazy and testing the waters with that, and also understanding how to manage a good and mature staff too. So the lessons, it's just so nice to have people to talk to, and I have a couple of people that are outside of this industry that I talk to quite often, just about the day to day and just about how to talk about change or how to talk about how to present things to our organization. And whether if you don't have a mentor, you will get one, but you should seek one out. That back to that cultural thing is probably a good fit and understands you, but has had more experience. I also recommend, not for you guys now, but later, make sure you give back and you mentor someone else, just to give them your perspective, what you've gone through, what things to stay away from, or it comes full circle. And I feel like the great advice I've given, I'd like to pass along to others. It just feel like it comes full circle.
That's fun, and that's one of the things I enjoy most in this industry is just the relationships you have with people. Everybody kind of shares similar experiences in their work life, their personal life.
Sure.
And then you all become friends and kind of look out for each other, which is a unique industry like that.
It is, and I would say to the young women in the group, not to isolate you, but many times I'm talking to other women about the work-life balance of having kids, and it's no different for the men, but I feel like sometimes the women are more comfortable talking to other women about it, and we have to be honest and open about how you don't have everything. You're just trying to figure out how you can keep everything afloat most of the time, and that's a conversation I have with a fair amount of people, and I think I'm proud to say I feel like we have a really good approach here. And for work-life balance for families. Like, I don't want people to miss something that their kid might be having that morning because they're going to be in for the game that night. So you don't have to be here. Go to that event. Make sure that you're visible and you're seen because you're not tucking them in that night. So that's a little bit more on the personal side. But listen, this is, you want people to and their spouses to feel like that they're being considered and their families being considered with an industry like this, which does demand weekends and holidays.
Well, I have to think even for your husband and also for your three boys, you have to bring mom to work day or to school day, right? You might have the coolest job of any parent when it comes in, but that's got to be fun to be able to share that with your kids and your spouse too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hate to go back to the Stanley Cup, but the day that I was so gracious that Mr. Jacobson, they gave the Stanley Cup to the staff as well, and I took mine to our elementary, middle school, and high school and had class pictures with everybody in our town, and my kids were a little bit of rock stars that day. They kind of liked it, but just to see these other kids' faces, they had so much fun and in our community, and you don't forget that, right? So it was just nice.
So we talked earlier about passion, culture, all of these kind of intangibles of being a good person, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think all of that came together with what you guys experienced last year following the marathon. And I think even for that, the one day when you guys played again, the Wednesday after, this whole country was Bruin fans at that night. That's a pinnacle moment. There is no textbook from a class 4, but what was that experience like where you do bring all of those, right? You're a community
absolutely
caretaker in that moment beyond a sports team, and how do you rally the staff? How do you be able to make those right decisions on the fly that led to that perfect moment that we all saw either on TV or for the folks that were here at TD Garden?
You know what? It was a combination of things. Obviously, you know, with the marathon bombing that took place that Monday, we canceled the Bruins game Monday and the Celtics game on Tuesday, and that Wednesday was the first major public event in the city, and we felt like we needed to have that event, and everybody agreed to start to get people to heal, to move forward, and to try to get back to business. And what better way in sports? Because many times sports is an escape from the real life. You get to come in and you're not dealing with work, and you're cheering and you're high-fiving some stranger next to you, and you're you know, you're having a good time. So that was certainly the intent. You know, we had to, the stress of the day, which people didn't see the behind the scenes, was making sure the building was safe. So having all of these, the Army trucks and the dogs and everything coming through, because our first priority is the safety of our fans. So we had to make sure that when those fans came in that day, that they felt like this is a safe, secure place to be, right? And that kind of, then they got in and you could just feel the weight off, that they were like, okay, we're in a good place. And then the national anthem, certainly the recognition of the families that had lost their members of their family, as well as the victims. There had to be an acknowledgement of that. And then with the anthem, and the anthem was probably the most emotional moment I've had in my 18 years here. It was talked about. You know, our marketing department did a great job of saying, this is what we're going to do, and we're just hoping that everybody joins in. And you never know. This is one of those moments that you hope that that's the way it comes out, but you're not sure. And when everybody started singing the anthem, you just felt like, you know, that's what we're all here. Like we're still very strong, and this city is very strong. And even though that, you know, we'd had this terrible, terrible incident that Monday, that we were going to heal and we were going to move forward. And it was a turning point, and you could just see it in everybody's face. And I don't know that people remember the outcome of that game. The Bruins lost. It was not relevant at all. It was about being there and being there in that moment. Nobody, like, you care, yes, it would be great, but nobody points back that the Bruins didn't win. It was about that moment. And in the rest of the week, we had to cancel some other games and move stuff around as they were, you know, apprehending the perpetrators. But it was a tough week.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of almost throw the rule book of your decisions. I mean, there is no textbook for that, but you're also going with your gut, team, sure, culture, doing the right thing. All of that shared commitment really comes into play there.
I think that I say it landing on right. If you make the right decision, if you feel like it's the right decision, everybody else will as well. I mean, that year was my first year as president. We canceled a game due to snow with the other team in town, which is the first time I believe it's happened in NHL history. We had other bad weather. We had the marathon. It was a lot going on that year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of but I mean, that goes back to what you said in the beginning. No day is different, and there's unique challenges. And when you show up for work, you're ready for anything.
Sure, and you know what? First and foremost, we have to make sure it's right for our fans that are coming in, and that's the easy decision to make. What's right for them, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Well, I want to offer it up too for if people have questions as we kind of head into, I guess, the fourth quarter here of the webinar.
Are we up?
Feel free to type them. Yeah, I think we're winning. I can judge by the round of applause from the other side.
Is that it?
But so feel free to type your questions, and I'll keep asking them, you know, as they're posted. You know, I'm curious, you know, also, Amy, of keeping up to date and ahead of trends. Students are always interested in. You mentioned talking to non-sports people as much as sports people. Where do you get your information? What are some resources that they should be looking at? Maybe some of the standard ones, as well as maybe some of the you know, non-traditional ones that you take a look at.
Yeah, I think, you know, so certainly technology is what we're always trying to stay ahead of, and we're trying to understand. Truly, for us, you know, we have an 18-year-old building, so bringing that up to speed and making sure that, you know, we have Wi-Fi now. Okay, so now we've been given this capability. What are we going to do with it? And that's everything from what are we doing from, you know, an app that we're going to be launching our TD Garden app shortly, and what attributes are in there, what do fans want, So that stuff, yes, you're looking at the other teams and what they're doing, but you're also looking at retailers, you're looking at what the movie theaters are doing, you're looking at what restaurants, you're trying to gather and, sort of steal, rip off and duplicate the R&D, what are sort of best practices in other industries, because they apply, in the gaming industry. Like, they need to know their customers and what are they doing for them. So, I try to get our staff out to as many conferences. I feel like people come back from conferences very energized. They get to meet people they might not have. It's not the same as sending somebody an email sometimes. And they get to hear these conversations and meet new vendors. And sometimes there's the 9 to 5, and then there's the 5 to 9. Sometimes at night, that you get to make you get to have some of those conversations that you wouldn't normally have. So that, I think, is really important. I think it's just going out and testing. When you read something new, Wall Street Journal, like, you can look in some places. We have some great industry magazines, but you're gonna have to look outside of that as well, just to see what's going on in the world and other places. And I just went to a summit related to our parks and resorts within Delaware North, and some of the same challenges they have, we do too, and they had some different ways they were approaching it, which we hadn't really thought of. And I just think that was a good. It's good to get outside.
It's really problem solving, isn't it? I
Sure.
mean, when you think about it, what is there? You mentioned a couple other business categories that are parallel: casinos, brands, restaurants, movie theaters. Is there one example of where you've borrowed an idea? Let's say we'll be careful with our words, from one of those, and then married it with something that the TD Garden is doing.
Well, you know what? I think there are some retailers that do a phenomenal job with service, right? And they're so attentive to their clients and greeting people and making sure that they're helping them. And they go out of their way. They leave their department. They go and do anything they can to make sure their associates are taken care of, or their guests are taken care of. Those are some good things for us to emulate. Disney is is somebody that we've worked with, and they certainly do a phenomenal job in setting some standards and making sure that everybody is sort of working off the same sheet. And within Delaware North, we've developed some service standards, and those are things that we employ across the whole company, which has been really helpful for us here as well.
So from a shared value perspective,
yes.
and everything.
Consistency, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably. And you think about all the people that touch a fan's experience. It's not only the executive team here and the full-time folks, but all of the ushers and everyone
from the parking lot
exactly.
all the way up into the arena. So at every corner, you want them to make sure that they're having the same experience.
Yeah. What are now sitting here? I know when we first met, mid-late '90s, talking about some of the unknown of .com and some of the early iterations of how teams monetize a lot of their electronic assets. Sitting here in 2014, what are 2 or 3 issues that you're really focused on learning more about over the next 3 to 5 years of the business life cycle here?
Well, I think one is certainly is understanding even more aspects of our clients today. So we have sort of basic information on them, but we really want to understand that we're making offers to them, that it's relevant to them, or that we're trying to understand their habits. And for example, people that come in and park in our garage that might go across the street to get something to eat, and how do we entice them to come in here a little bit early? But we need to know when they're coming in and what they like about it. So it's still understanding. Truly, people can come in the building and be here for 3 hours, and we might not know who they are still. And they're buying things, but if they're buying with cash and other stuff, so trying to understand the habits of those fans that are coming in and the ones that we don't know who they are, understanding that a little bit better for sure. I think we're always trying to enhance that fan experience now. So if you go back and look, our VP of Marketing reminded me of this, that we launched some commercials a few years ago with this bear. And the bear there were good commercials, really fun, talking about the Bruins hockey rules and things that you shouldn't do. And one of them was a bear chasing after a fan, and you see the fan throwing their cell phone, and the rule was, you shouldn't be on your cell phone during a game. Well, boy, have we
Yeah.
switched that. I mean, now we're trying to send them content and new views, and we're have games, and we want them to use the app, and because we know that it's a social experience, and if they want to take a picture and post it to Facebook, and you know, we want them the ability to do that, right? And to tell other people that they're here and meet me here for a drink. So that fan experience aspect of being able to interact that they want to do with technology is really important to us as well.
So now I imagine like an updated version of that, where the bear is texting the fan a selfie from the game, right? You know.
Absolutely.
I think,
or he's photobombing.
Exactly. Bradley Cooper, everybody else is popping up. Well,
Right.
you know, I guess even some you know, some final thoughts on my end from a question standpoint, and kind of summarizing passion, culture, you know, really kind of that X factor of just how you treat people, and then being part of a team, you know, seems to be kind of the secret sauce of success here at TD Garden. You know, any other advice, feedback, if you're, you know, a grad student at Northwestern aspiring to be your chair one day, of things that, you know, beyond the X's and O's of what they're learning in the classroom, of what they should be, you know, really kind of focusing their energy on?
Yeah, I think I do think it is trying to understand what your attributes are and knowing what makes you happy, because if you're happy at what you're doing, you are going to be a great associate or an employee. You love your job. You're going to be great at whatever you do. So I think truly not only doing that evaluation of the organization that you're looking into, but of yourself. And it's okay that if you don't like public speaking, that's fine. Like, I don't love to write. I would give a speech in a second. So knowing some of those attributes about yourself and doing that research, I think it's going to really benefit you getting into your next job. And talk to people. Try to just get in front of as many people as possible to understand different aspects of the business. And by the way, there are so many tentacles of this business, so it's not just working, you know, necessarily for the team. It could be working for the retailer that supports the team, or, you know, I will tell you, for many of you, if analytics is your niche, then that is probably the hottest job that is coming into all of these sports teams. We can't build out the analytics skill set and departments fast enough to meet the needs, because all our decisions now are based on data. There's, you know, the making the decisions on gut and feeling in this industry are pretty much gone.
Yeah, so it's exciting time, right? An exciting time to be a student, you know, from that perspective, to really harness kind of those skill sets and then apply it to
those will be the next leaders in the sports organizations, for sure.
We're going to be working for them, right?
Yes. Just hire me then.
Exactly. Well, Amy, on behalf of Northwestern, thanks so much for sharing your story and continued success. And to everybody back in Chicago or around, we're saying goodbye from Boston, and thank you for joining, and thank you to Northwestern for hosting the webinar.
Thank you very much. Good luck.